Thanks for staying with us on What Now. We're continuing the What Now with a new trade deal between the UK and the US. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government has agreed to concessions on American food and agriculture to ease tariffs on car exports. For British trade negotiators trying to get a deal from Donald Trump, securing concessions for the car industry has been a priority. The US is the UK's largest single country automotive market, worth about $9 billion and accounting for 1 in every 4 cars sold abroad. That makes the 25% tariff levied by President Trump a huge pressure on manufacturers and thousands of jobs in their supply chains. The food and animal trade brought about over £1.1 billion of exports to the UK last year. The latest trade deal between the US and the UK comes at a time the Bank of England decided to cut interest rate from 4.5% to 4.25%. And for more on the trade ties between the US and the UK, global affairs analyst Benga Nufade joins me from the United Kingdom. Good to have you join us. Now, how significant is this development for you, especially coming from weeks of tension?
Right, good afternoon. It's not a big deal as much as Donald Trump has actually announced it, really, because number one, if you look at a few factors, UK is not a big trading partner with the United States in terms of volume. I think if you're looking at something ground shaking, as Donald Trump has actually announced, you will be looking at China, you'll be looking at the EU. I think overall, I mean, UK does not buy a lot from America. I think 51% of America's trade is with the EU, and the US imports about 70 billion per annum from the UK, which is quite small. You know, if you look at the trading volume the US does with other countries. I think the big deal or the bigger trade is mostly, yes, like you said, is from the cars, and I think services and pharmaceutical. So I think, and of course, many commentators have actually called on this as well, that the US have quite a lot of a trade surplus, really, with the United Kingdom. So it's obviously not as ground shaking. And I think as much as the details have not been released, it would not be as comprehensive as Donald Trump said it will be. Yes, we haven't got the full details, but we do know some of it, and it's not as comprehensive as Donald Trump has announced that it will be. You got the U.S. national debt of 37 trillion. So if you're talking about 80 or 70 billion in terms of trade, that's actually you're talking about a very, very tiny speck from a huge mole or hill in this case. So it's not a big deal at all.
A lot of economic and trade analysts like yourself have all said, while it marks progress in terms of addressing recent tariff issues, it really does not constitute or sum up to becoming a trade agreement. Do you also agree with that?
Yes, I mean, yes. Eventually, it's a good starting point. I think that's one of the key things we need to focus on. It's a good starting point. Yes, there's a deal. We don't know full details. Trump is going to mount the podium at some point today, and likewise, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is going to be doing the same thing today. Good starting point. I think the key pointer here to note is that it's UK is actually. They are the thing about America and UK first, the special relationship, and the word first, political win, diplomatic win. It's a big deal for the United Kingdom, which used to be one of the biggest players on the world stage, still is, of course. And that's the key thing. UK wants to be there. UK wants to say, you know what, we still have a great, relationship with, and
that's what I was going to ask you about next. Apologies, I interrupted you. I have 2 questions, but I hope you can answer them in just a minute. One of them, what you just talked about, in his policies, especially the tariffs, President Trump has pretty much blurred the line between allies and adversaries, treating everyone alike. Does this now mean that there is that relationship has been restored between both countries? And then what does this mean for commodity prices on the ground in the UK?
No, unfortunately, the line is still very, very much blurred. We're talking UK, we're talking EU, which haven't got, we're talking China. And, of course, while UK, EU are not necessarily adversaries, they're allies, but of course, and Canada as well, the line is actually blurred as we speak. And if you actually go into some of the granular details, one of the things, Donald Trump has actually talked about is the fact that the UK does not, or the EU as well, generally do not buy much of the cars made in America. And meanwhile, the same thing is not reciprocated, in America. But I think the EU's got the point, which is, these cars are not, they haven't gone to that much of a great deal in terms of the testing that they do. And again, I think one of the other things is the fact that, the UK has actually said they're not gonna move the goalposts. Some of these chlorine dipped agricultural products from America, which America's, asked if the UK will buy right now. And they say, no, they're still not going to buy them. Would it affect commodity prices? I don't think much at all. I still think most of the baseline is still going to be on that 10% tariff. UK is actually going to cut some of the taxes, especially on the big techs from America. Amazon's probably should be one of the beneficiaries. So, of course, that's a win for America. But does that affect the commodities here? Not by a great deal, no.
All right, we're following through with this agreement, waiting for details, as you've also mentioned. Thank you so much for your time. Global Affairs Analyst, Benga Onifade.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's turn attention to the Middle East. Lebanese official media say Israel has conducted